Hello and welcome to Spooning with me, Mark Wogan. We are here in the Lindsay room in Corrigan's Mayfair, where myself and the kitchen have been cooking up a storm for my very special guest today. Now, regular listeners to the podcast will know that I reference this gentleman quite a lot, to the point where Johnny, the producer, says, could you please stop mentioning that in every single podcast? But this man has changed how I eat. And if you listen very carefully, he'll do the same for you. Now, what grounds has this man got to change the way I eat? Well, let's start with the fact that he's a professor. And then also that he's written over 800 papers, umpteen books. But today, what we're going to do is find out about Professor Tim Spector. Hello, sir.
Hello, Mark.
How are you?
Marvellous.
Good. Now, you have been telling us how to eat properly, initially quite quietly, and slightly louder and louder over the years. But I think what I would like to discover is what brought you to this point. Because I think there were certain key things that happened in life that you went down the gut route, should I say, and became what we refer to in our house as the gut father. I'm sure you've been called that before.
Yeah, I send horses' heads around the place. But horses' bottoms.
So if we go all the way back, you were born in 1958, but you should be proud of your age because you look phenomenal for your age. So you're born in 1958 in London, Australian mum, English dad, and your father was in the world of medicine. Is that what initially inspired your career trajectory, or was it something else?
Yeah, I quite liked the idea of being a doctor. I didn't really want to do all that work though, so I wasn't very good at school, and so it was only really the last couple of years at school that, or maybe the last 6 months, that I sort of turned it around and said, okay, I'll do just enough to scrape into medical school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. My dad said, if you get a medical degree, basically you can do anything. You'll never be unemployed.
There is that.
And so, if you want to do something else, that's fine. Because in a way there was, a rebel in me. I said, I don't really want to do what my dad did. That's rather...
Yeah, it didn't work out so well for me. But there we go.
Anyway, I was a sort of reluctant student, very lazy.
I find that very hard to believe. I'm sorry. Because, if we talk about your research, I mean, that takes a level of diligence that isn't available to a lazy person.
Well, I guess what I hated was being told what to do.
Right.
So school is all about being told what to do, what to learn, what to, do your homework.
Yeah, we didn't gel, school and I.
So I didn't gel really at school. And it wasn't really until the concept of doing your own research started. So I started the last year at school, I was able to do my own biology project and doing my own research, and I was doing stuff with, that was the only time really that I started doing something more than I absolutely had to, and I found I enjoyed it. So then that said, okay, my little biology project was the start of my sort of research career, if you like.
What was that project? And did it have early pointers to where you've ended up?
Well, I'm not sure anyone's ever asked me that, actually. It was a project on Mullerian mimicry. Right? So basically the idea of evolution of insects.
Pretend I'm an idiot. It's an easy thing.
So it involved getting lots of different bits of bread of different colours, dough, and painting them different colours. And in some of them, you would put a bitter flavouring. So it was incredibly bitter, and you waited for birds to eat them. So you're mocking up like insects' colours, and it was how quickly birds would learn which colour was edible and which to avoid. And so every day you put out different colours and you sort of trained the birds, and then you looked and see at the end of the day how many had been left. So they learnt to avoid the ones I was making horrible, with a really amazingly bitter, and they went for the sweeter ones. And that was my little project. So I guess that was my first food experiment.
And you've done
till now.
plenty of those.
I hadn't thought about it. And that got me into medical school, actually, because my grades were so terrible in physics and chemistry that I needed biology to boost me to get in. So I wouldn't, I'd have no chance today if I was going to do medicine.
But isn't that interesting that, somebody who has ended up making such a contribution, and we'll get on to the various areas in which you've done that, wouldn't get into medical school today?
Yeah, I think they're probably picking the wrong people at the moment. They're too academic. They're too streamlined. They start at about the age of 12 saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to have extra coaching and tuition. And they're probably too bright to do medicine. You don't want people who are too bright, because most of it's talking to people and chatting and doing a bit of rote learning. And in the future, it will be done by AI anyway. So, and they should get probably, I think, a more diverse group, like,
different thinkers.
Yeah, and which happened when you only needed, 3 Cs to get in. You got a wide variety of people, the very bright, the not so bright, the lazy, the late developers like myself. And yeah, whereas now it's a bit more homogenized. And, that's the way it's gone. And a lot of these people burn out now in medicine as well. So they've been studying so hard for so long that they can't, they just have to go part-time or, give up earlier.
But I think also it is understanding that it's like a lot of careers that you have to study a long time for. It's vocational. So you've got to be in it.
You've got to love it.
And if it's just pushing disease in and out of bodies, it's not necessarily that inspiring. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's harder now. Everything's more formulaic in medicine. I'm not sure I'd want to do medicine now in this country.
But do you think that's because of budgetary stuff, or is it because it's just everything is becoming more AI driven, more computer driven? Which is probably budgetary again.
Everything's less flexible now. So everything's a route that's, ordained and obsessed with sort of health and safety, and it's become far more bureaucratic. But it's a very different world. There were like 90 people in my year. Now, there'd be 350 in my year. And I wouldn't know everybody.
But you came in via the NHS route, like most people. I would look at that route now and think, I'm not sure I'd want to go through that process now. I think it's a difficult one.
Yeah, but it was difficult in my day. We were doing 72-hour shifts non-stop, from Friday morning till Monday evening with just a few hours sleep. But, the adrenaline, the excitement, and you had the support of friends, colleagues, nurses. It was, one team.
It was a much.
Whereas now they've broken it into rota systems. You don't have that team. So they've destroyed the team, which was essential for, keeping you mentally strong, under really tough circumstances. And now everyone's separate. They don't meet their other colleagues. They're all going, doing shift work, and you don't belong to any groups anymore. And I think that's make it really difficult for the current group of junior doctors.
And I think also to feel like you're making a difference at work has become nigh on impossible, because you even if you're working in an A&E department, you've got the same people coming back presenting with the same condition because they can't get seen elsewhere for it.
Yeah, no, it's I do feel for the current way of doctor. It is very difficult, and and it's and the NHS is on its knees, and it's not nice to be I probably had the best of it when it was, everyone was aspiring to. Now nobody wants to have a system like ours in the rest of Europe.
No.
So it needs to change dramatically. We need to know that the system, it's run its course. It was great in the 70s and 80s, but it no longer fit for purpose.
Are you saying yes or no to Professor Tim Spector, Minister for Health? Are we?
I'd be useless. I'm good at complaining about things, but I'm useless as a getting people to do things. I can say what's wrong. I've met Wes Streeting, and said, I think we should change the whole system. He said, well, if I believed that, I would change it, but I think we can still work within the NHS. And I think, working with a company like Zoe, you see companies are so much more efficient than groups that don't work with budgets and money. They just have to be.
Yeah, they have to work.
And every other health system in Europe has got some money involved in it that moves around, that ensures that you don't have a third of the staff that are really not productive and are just an administrative burden. That wouldn't happen.
Well, I think anything that, it seems we've got into a position as a country where anything that is funded by the public purse is not accountable. And I think it needs to get away from that.
Yeah, and so many jobs that you just wouldn't have if someone was paying for it. Yes. And we are all paying for it, but we're not allowed to say anything rude about the NHS, because we'll get cancelled.
Yeah, well, there was more than just an interest in medicine and whatever that inspired you, I think, though. Your dad passing prematurely early, I think, created a sort of, would it be correct to say, a fear in you of dying, that you wanted to then almost investigate, how do I stop that?
Yeah, well, when he died when I was 21, and I think at 21 you think you're invincible, right? So you don't really think about death at that point. That's happened to old people, and so I don't think anything really clicked until a lot later. I didn't really start thinking about it until perhaps I was in my 40s, me personally.
Well, because you had your own health scare as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so that was in my 50s, so early 50s, and I had this health scare. I was, doing some ski touring where you're walking up a mountain and quite hard work, and then had this.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest, Tim, it's much more fun with a lift. I mean, I don't want to walk up the mountain.
Yeah, no, it's a very silly thing to do. You spend 6 hours walking up and about half an hour going down. But
you were a fit man when this happened to you, weren't you?
Yeah, relatively fit. I thought I was, perhaps fitter than I was. I had this mini stroke, which left me with double vision for 3 months. My blood pressure shot up, and suddenly I was saying, whoa, there's me thinking I was the bee's knees of fitness, suddenly taking tablets and like my patients, and having heart tests and brain. Luckily, it got better. I still was left with high blood pressure, but this realization that, gosh, in a few years I'll be the same age as my dad when he died of a heart attack in his sleep, and that was a real wake-up call. And this moment just coincided with my research findings of the very early days of the microbiome, the microbes in your gut being vitally important and explaining lots of things in my twin work. So these two sort of, one of self-discovery, the other this research discovery, both happened within a few months of each other. And I said, right, I'm going to change the rest of my career towards understanding the gut microbes. And if you don't understand the gut microbes, it's got to be about food and diet. And at the same time, I'm going to try and look after myself. I'm going to be selfish, right? All this epidemiology, doing populations, that's all right. But, what about me? That's right. You know, and what advice would I give myself, or how do I transfer this population style advice to individual advice? And so a whole series of experiments, both with myself and with the twins, and then with Zoe.
That's what I've always liked reading about you, and having read all your books now, because I am a fan. You've always taken a really unique route with your research. So to do the twins thing, explain to our listeners about the twins experiments that you did, because you reference that in this book as well a lot.
Yeah. So 30 years ago, I'd just finished doing my equivalent of a PhD thesis. It's called an MD thesis.
As a lazy person, yeah.
And I was less lazy by then. I just sort of, but I had lots of spare energy because I'd slept through most of my, teenage life. So I'd done this thesis on hormones and arthritis, and I was saying, what do I do now? And my boss at the time was who was moving to Manchester and was setting up a big unit. He said, you can come up there and work with me. I said, well, look, I don't do that, and I want to do something else. Otherwise, I'll just be doing a Me Too study. So I spent 3 months saying, what can I do that's really exciting as my next project? And really spent some time doing this and talking to lots of people. And finally, having a beer with someone in Oxford, and he was a geneticist. He said, what about twin studies? And I said, oh yeah, I remember them when I was doing my master's in epidemiology. They're quite fun. And looked into it and said, gosh, nobody's doing a twin study in the UK. And it's really cool. Nature v nurture. You have these identical twins that share all their genes, non-identical twins. And just by comparing how similar they are, you get these really fundamental answers to many things, whether it's personality, whether it's habits, whether it's diseases, etc. So that really grabbed my attention. I said, okay, I've got to do that. And managed to bluff my way to get some money to get going. We got big publicity, from the media helped us get recruits, and suddenly we're off and running. And that was probably the best decision of my career, because from there you could study any disease. I started with arthritis and bone diseases, osteoporosis, but realized soon you could study anything. So I ended up studying over 100 different diseases.
But it was the main thing that you arrived at was that you could change your genes, essentially.
Eventually, yes. It took me a while to realize that. So,
an overnight success of 20 years.
Well, it was 30 years ago so I went through various phases.
To your book you brought out, which was, Identical Twins, You Can Change Your Genes, which is in 2012.
Identically different, yes.
Yeah, identically different, which was 20 years after the study started.
Yeah, exactly, which documented in a way, the first half of that time I was obsessed. Genes are everything, right? You can't change them. Just blame your parents. There's nothing else you can do, right? But then it became clear that if that was true, then identical twins would always die at the same time. They'd always get the same diseases. There'd be no variation if it was that clear. And so I then spent several years working out why these identical twins would be different, and came up with the fact you can change your genes, your environment can switch genes on and off, and that was part of the solution. And that was the first inkling about why genes aren't the bee's knees. There's much more going on, and the environment is important, and even what your parents did or your grandparents did can have an effect on how those genes are working. But I realized that was only a relatively small effect compared to the next sort of big discovery, of the gut microbes. And so that was the sort of big revelation, which happened around this sort of 2011, 2012, that made me switch again from what the science is called epigenetics, how you can switch genes on and off, to actually, the gut microbiome, which was suddenly, this new area, but which was easier to shift because you knew how you could feed microbes, and if you can change, whereas it's harder to know how to change your genes as an individual.
I mean, the sort of gene thing and the importance of them, or how essentially destructive they could be, came about. My sister, her first child, the mix of her and her husband's genes gave her son hyperinsulinism, which, as you will know all too well, how dangerous that is in a small baby. So they had a horrific sort of first 6 months, and have continued to worry about him despite the fact that he's now 6'2" and built like a brick outhouse. But that
it was touch and go at the beginning.
Yes. Now, so the book about genes comes out 2012, and then obviously you pivot into what you've really become known for, because you start the British Gut Project in 2014.
Yeah. So in the book 2012, there's one page on the gut microbiome. I'd been to a conference, I'd started the research. I thought, this is interesting, so I'll put a page in here just to sort of, put a marker. And it just really took off. And so it was the first thing that was really different in that we'd seen in identical twins that could explain why they're different. And we did the first big twin study and showed that, they only share about 25% of their microbial species. Quite amazing, really, when they share 100% of all their genes. Virtually everything is highly correlated.
So that's always the thing when we talk about the gut microbiome. It is your individual collection of bacteria, and the word individual is really quite key.
Yeah.
So therefore, how is there a kind of way of eating that suits? That's what you've unraveled, is a way of eating that sort of suits all sort of versions of that microbiome.
Yeah, well, it means that there's probably a generic way of eating which will help most people, and then there's some specific or personalized ways of eating that might differ between one twin and another, for example. And that's what we've subsequently found when we tested giving identical. We gave 1,000 twins the same meal and found they reacted differently.
But your first book in this particular forum was The Diet Myth back in 2015, which sort of started to prick the bubble of the world of diets and how kind of silly it all is.
Yeah.
I mean, I read that book after I read your next book after that, which for me was absolutely game-changing, which was Spoon-Fed. And that was 2017 was Spoon-Fed.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden, for me, there was a book which sort of said what I suspected. Because as we've discussed in the past, I've been every size imaginable over the years. I've been 23 stone, I've been down here, all over the place, fluctuating, yo-yo dieting nightmare, with a fairly crappy relationship with food. That book changed it for me. And because it just kind of just said, because I was always like, one of the first lines that jumped out was like, breakfast is not the most important meal of the day. What a relief. Because I'm thinking, oh God, if I don't start the day on breakfast does not suit me. Me and breakfast do not get on. I'm happy to not eat till about 4 p.m. That's when I want to eat. So just that kind of thing of like, but all the sort of things about salt and about fat and just all these things that we've told were evil. I mean, I can't help feeling you had an awful lot of fun writing that book in terms of,
Yes.
because you kind of just said it when nobody else had before.
Yeah, it suited my personality because, as well as being a rebel, I don't mind stirring things up. You know, I'm used now to my colleagues
Yeah.
and who, especially academics, who
Sometimes makes it all worth it. Yes.
yeah, exactly. But you know, it gets easier with seniority. You know, it's very hard to pick off all your colleagues as a junior because you'll be out of a job and you know on the street. But when you get to a certain level, you can look at things objectively and say, I never really believe that stuff about salt. You know, salt. And I, for example, you know, I did my own test of did it change my blood pressure when I stopped having salt? No, but it ruined my life. You know? So
taste is horrible.
but it didn't reduce my blood pressure at all, and that's true for most people. So that was one of these things that, you know, was being rammed down our throats. You said, well, you know, anything with salt in it is evil. Everyone must stop. You know, why did no one say, well, actually, that's for, you know, 1 in 5 of the population, but the rest of you are fine?
Okay, I have a question for you. Now, a while back, we had Heston Blumenthal on, and he happened to say, which I agreed with him, that MSG is not bad, right? And this particular clip that we put out went quite viral, people quite angry about what we were both saying, because I said that what it did was its roots were slightly in institutional racism. It's like it's Chinese food. It's like it's bad for you. Where does Professor Tim Spector stand on MSG?
MSG itself is fine. All the studies it's one of the most studied chemicals in you know, in the modern food history.
Because it makes stuff taste great.
It gives it umami. So there's nothing wrong with it. It actually doesn't cause headaches. Even though I believed it did at the
we all did.
You know, but you know, it probably was abused by some foods and restaurants to disguise the lack of anything good in that food at all. So it was probably overused massively. But actually, as a chemical, there's far worse ones which we are very happy about. So it was like it got the worst PR, had the worst PR team in the world defending it. So I'm with you and Heston on that one. Nothing wrong with MSG.
Excellent. That's what we love to hear, Tim. So the other thing that you did, which was extraordinary and sort of game-changing around about the sort of spoon-fed time was, I mean, you'd started it before that, which was Zoe. But explain to people initially how Zoe started, because it was about an information collecting portal, really, wasn't it?
Well, I was giving a talk at Royal Geographical Society with some other speakers, and there was another speaker there who'd just done a study on glucose monitors. Erin Segal, and I was talking about the diet myth and the gut microbiome, and these two guys were in the audience, and they said, we've got to talk to you. And they came to my office and said, we love this idea of combining perhaps personalized nutrition and the gut microbiome in some way, all the things that you've been talking about. And I said, well, you know, there's no real science in it, so you can't just set it up unless you're just going to do a marketing-led company, and I'm not interested in that. They said, no, we'll fund science. I said, okay, all right. Well, go and get some money and come back. And amazingly, about 3 weeks later, they came back and said, well, we've got a few million to start.
Like, okay, I'm with you then.
So I couldn't back out, and I said, okay, right. And I said, okay, and so what sort of study do you need? And I said, well, we've got to do at least 1,000 people, the biggest ever intervention study done in nutrition, in order to see, you know, how much people vary when they eat the same food. We're going to give everyone identical food, see what happens, and then see if we can predict how you would respond to any food. And that's going to be this whole new era of personalized nutrition. And we use all the tricks we can do. And because we thought at the time genes would still be important, we were going to do this in twins. So we could have, and by having twins, you've got the perfect genetic test. So you will know whether everyone should be tested for their genes or not. And so that was the whole idea. And amazingly, the investors were quite happy to just wait and do science. And as you know, most investors are not that patient.
No.
They want their
Very
so much of their
helpful,
money.
but occasionally not patient.
And so it was extraordinary. So we got this study up and running, and because it was a very small dynamic team who, driven commercially, we did it in 5 times the speed of what we would have done normally. If I had to raise a grant, it would have taken me 5-6 years. We did it in 9 months. And Zoe was born then. The results showed this 10-fold difference between people eating the same food in terms of their blood levels of sugars and fats. We showed the microbes in the gut were having a big effect on how people differed. And then, we went off and designed an algorithm and sold these kits, and it's now sold, over 300,000 of these. And we've got now the biggest database in the world of gut health.
I know, and it's extraordinary because I think people still don't really get how important your gut health is. They're still out there eating junk and wondering why they feel terrible.
Yeah.
I just can't get up. I'm so tired. And it's not about cutting out food groups. It's not about denying stuff. It's just about eating right. And one of the things that I found so easy and so accessible that you pioneered was the 30 different plants a week. Just to eat 30 different plants a week. And it was that everybody goes, I can't do that. That's impossible. And then you explain what plants are.
Yeah, which is, you think you shouldn't have to, but no one learns it at school, or no one actually mentions this. And it's like, oh, is a herb a plant?
Yeah. Is a spice a plant? Yes. Yeah. Is garlic a plant? Yes. Yeah. Is a bean a plant? Yes.
Yeah. So just that is pretty important education to just say what a plant is. And yeah, I think that of the things that I've put in my books, that's the thing that has really stuck with the population.
Well, it's just easy.
And and if you do that, everything else comes along because you get enough fiber. You don't have to count out weigh everything to know how much fiber you're getting. You're virtually assured to get that if you do that, and you're virtually assured to get a healthy gut microbiome if you can do it consistently. And it still allows you to have the odd junk meal. It doesn't matter because you've got your core is in such good health that it's much more it can tolerate abuse.
And I think it's that thing of we've all, those of us who have been overnourished in the past, we've done the diets, they've worked, they then don't work. We've read the science changes. But this, what you're talking about, has through the work you've done with Zoe and your whole career, that the learnings and what you are telling us about in your books has real depth to it. It's not like, that thing we'd always joke about it at home, that thing of like every week in the Daily Mail there'd be a new piece of nutritional advice that would be almost exactly the opposite to what they told you the previous week.
Rhubarb is good. Rhubarb gives you cancer. Rhubarb, it gives you dementia.
Rhubarb cures dementia. Drink 2 glasses of red wine. Drink no red wine. Drink 4 glasses of red. It's like, so you'll understand that the wider populace are going to look at it and go, I'm going to go to Iceland, get something I want to eat. It's all rubbish. What do you think is the next stage of getting people to understand? I mean, there's only so much one man can do, and my goodness, you've done it. But I think, how do you bring it to a wider audience, other than those of us who are slightly obsessive and want to make a change?
Well, I think we are gaining audience. So if we've got 300,000 people have actually not only heard about what we're doing, but they've paid good money. Zoe, we want to get millions of people, eating in the Zoe way, and we're doing that by reducing the cost of the whole testing kit, so that you can get an app for under £10 a month, which is 2 cups of coffee basically a month. Nowadays,
I don't know where you're getting your coffee, but it'd be 2 cups of coffee at £12 a month. So if you're in central London,
and this will be a tool in order to get everyone thinking about food differently, so that I think the trick is give people a new way of looking at food, and apps and AI are, I think, a game changer for this, and that you can change people's mentality so they're not obsessed with calories, they're not obsessed with fats, not obsessed with salt, as you said. You can actually say, well, you've got an app that will plant count for you, right? So on our new app, it will measure how many plants you've got. At the end of the week, you're at 28. You need another 2 to, and I love that bit of the app. It keeps me on that game because it's long term. This is not short termism. But it's about introducing people. Like that's in a way why I wrote the book Ferment. It's like, look, most of the people in this country don't know what a fermented food is, and if they do, they're not eating nearly enough of it.
Well.
And that's and you've got the 30 a week, but I want to also press this idea of these 3 ferments a day.
Right, I have to say, is brilliant, because it's talking, Tim, about something that we have forgotten about as a race, which is how good fermenting things is for you. Now, you talk about the 3 core ferments in the book. Could you explain that a bit more? What that's about, because this is you've likened this to your sort of 30 different plants a week sort of ethos. Talk to us about the 3 ferments.
Right. So all the studies that have been done so far suggest that you need to have fermented foods in your diet on a regular basis. It doesn't. So just having a binge once every 2 weeks doesn't work.
No.
Okay, so
it might have the opposite effect.
It might have the opposite effect. So the idea is that you have this daily, and all the microbes in these foods, because fermented foods, generally we're talking about the live ones. We can come on to the dead ones later, but the live ones are in the food, in the yogurt, the cheese, the kefirs, the krauts, and you need to be eating small amounts of them regularly in order to have a really important effect on your gut, probably via your immune system and your nervous system. They need to be tickling your gut regularly to have a beneficial effect. So that's why they should be incorporated into everyone's daily diet. And this is a bit of a revelation for people who, didn't really understand how they might work or what they should be doing. So, we've lost the art of this. Many other countries you go to, I give this talk, and people from Poland or Ukraine or whatever, they're saying, oh, we do that all the time.
What are you talking about? Don't come over here telling us how to eat.
Exactly. But you talk to the average person in the UK and, wow, they might have, a yogurt once a week or something, and that maybe some cheese, but they've been told it's unhealthy, so they don't.
Because it's pasteurized. It's not pasteurized. It's dangerous for you.
Yes.
But you go into that in detail in the book. What I like is you've done some recipes in the book which are really easy to follow. Now, I started my chilies. They're not ready, but I am very excited about my lacto chilies because I love spice and I love all things spice. And the idea that I can be putting something that I really love the flavor of and the effect that it has on food into my food that then has a really positive effect on my gut. It's so simple, but until you're there just going, well, why would I do that?
It's double fermenting as well, because you're actually, what you're seeing when you say ferment your chilies or whatever, is what also happens to most of the food inside your gut. So you're getting a view of this, and this is why all kids should ferment, so they really understand what's happening inside their bodies. You've got a little experiment. You put it's like your little gut in there in that jar. Put the chilies in there. They transform it into a completely different flavor. you don't get that sharpness, that burn. It's a much more mild and more complex flavour. So I love my my chili ferments, and I add, I use powdered chilies actually. I found that, and you get a paste, and add that to all kinds of things, and it's just more subtle than the original chili, if you like.
I like the lack of subtlety there, though. The condition or the complaint that you most hear people who aren't following this kind of diet, what is that? Is it tiredness? Is it flatulence? Is it what's the most common complaint that can be cured by eating a more fermented friendly diet?
We did a study of 10,000 volunteers, and which we haven't published yet, it's quite recent. And we asked people who weren't having fermented foods to try them 3 portions for 2 weeks, 3 portions a day for 2 weeks. And
That's 3 portions a day for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. And most of them managed it. 1,000 didn't, but most of them managed it. And those that did manage it, over 50% reported improvements in energy levels, which is a real big problem these days. People just feeling tired all the time. Their mood improved. So, they were a bit depressed or anxious. That got better. They got less bloating, less constipation, and they had also less heartburn. So these are all very common things that you said, well, there's nothing much I can do about that. This is just my life. And there's, the outside environment. But if you change the inside environment through these amazing ferments, you can see these changes. And I think this is why everyone should try
I'd be careful
to do this for the 2-week challenge.
I'd be careful, Tim, because if you wipe out the antacid business, they're going to be out to get you. Now, we've got to that point.
I can join the queue, can't they?
Exactly, there people off. But we've got to that point in proceedings when I am going to ask you to don the Spooning with Mark Wogan blindfold, courtesy of our friends at Smug. It does create complete blackout. There we go. It does, yeah. Right. And which way do I go first with the Professor Tim? I'm going to go this way first. Okay. So we have something here that you were very specific about in your questionnaire, and I'm going to feed this to you. So open wide. Here we go. Tell me, what have you got? Flavors, textures? Do you know what it is? Is it nice?
Strawberries.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's meringue. That's a Pavlova, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Take the blindfold off. Because this was your favourite childhood memory. So when you were growing up, was Mum a cook? Was she a good cook? Careful.
No, she was a terrible cook. But she could make a really good Pavlova.
Yeah. Well, this was made by my wife, Susan, who is the baker in the family.
Well, that's very good. It looks a lot better than my mum's one, but it all used to crumble on itself, and it was a sort of,
it's about that feathery
light. It looked terrible, but it tasted fantastic, and it was what I loved about my mum's one. It was soft and gooey, and this is soft and gooey, not those really hard.
No. Pavlova's got to have a soft centre, almost marshmallow.
But most of the ones you get, in restaurants are using a
meringue nest.
Yes.
No, nobody likes a meringue nest. But we have sort of done a slight, we've done a slight Tim Spector thing with the coulis there, which is, that's got blackberries, blueberries, red currants, loganberries, raspberries, and strawberries in it.
Okay.
So, although it is sugar, although it is cream, although it is fat and all that kind of thing, we're getting the plants in, Tim.
Fantastic. Okay, so
I think we've done a good job there, right?
A health dish now. Yeah.
Well, but I try and operate on an 80-20. So, I love crappy chocolate. I like biscuits. I like all of those sort of things that you are quite clear that are terrible for you. And I agree, they are. But that doesn't, I think if you go to the trouble of making something, it's going to be better for you than if you've bought it.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I think it's the same. It's almost the same with your ferments. That like you touch on the book. You know, great companies like Fadaz, for example, who are kind of bringing interesting and different kimchis to the market. But they're so easy to make yourself, and then you kind of get into the experimentation thing. The thing I've never got on with, that you go on quite a lot about in here, is your own sourdough. I find it a pain in the bum, my own sourdough. Don't you? I mean, come on, admit it, Tim. It's
I used to, but I've now got a system
Yeah.
that, you know, I can literally do it in 10 minutes. 10 minutes a day. And there's no frills. I don't measure things precisely. I've stopped, I used to do temperature gauges and all this. I don't do any of that stuff now. It's really quick and simple. And I virtually don't buy any bread. And I keep spare in the freezer. So you always make a bit too much and you just take it out of the freezer.
Toast it.
And you toast it and it's fine. So yeah, so you can't convince me to not do my own sourdough. But I've got a really quick and dirty method. It's maybe not the best sourdough in the world.
Well, you talk about it in here because it's one of the most asked questions you get, isn't it? Like, what's happening to my mother? Which is for those who don't know, is the thing that sits in the fridge, sort of bubbling away as what helps the bread come to life. But in this book, you obviously you touch on, and I feel like this is the next part of your crusade, and it is a crusade because I think it is a life's work and you want to change how people approach food, is talking a lot more about ultra processed foods and how really bad they are for us, and not in a kind of scaremongery way. It's just like, it's a fact. The problem we've got, I think, is the messaging. So if there was one perceived healthy food that is on every supermarket shelf, that if you had the power tomorrow to go and go, that needs to come off a shelf tomorrow and we need to stop telling people that's good, what is it?
Well, virtually all children's yogurts and breakfast cereals, I guess, would be the sort of two things that are sold as health foods that are absolutely not.
They're really not. I mean, it's like, let's fill someone with sugar just before they leave the house.
Yeah, I mean, particularly breakfast cereals with cartoons and displays of vitamins and, Cocoa Pops, and it's got a sign on it that's healthy for all the family. How can you have something that is sugar, healthy for all the family? It's outrageous that we allow that.
What if two of the family members are diabetic? It's not great for them. I mean, but it is insane that that's still...
I can't put health, our prebiotic 30, I can't put healthy for all the family on that.
Really?
Because it doesn't have added vitamins,
it's just got the real plants that are in it. But you talk about vitamins, and that's another interesting thing, because the vitamin market is huge and the supplement market is huge. And there's very clear evidence that the majority of it is a complete waste of time. Correct. That you take your, supplement stack.
50% of the population take a daily supplement. So it's we're talking about everybody, really.
Yeah. And it's of no benefit to you at all.
Correct. So that's why people should save that money and use it on real food.
Yeah.
People say I haven't got enough money for things. Well, stop buying supplements.
Because, I mean, literally, to not put too fine a point on it, it just passes through your system. It doesn't attach, and some people go, oh, well, no, you're having the wrong type and you need to go and get this brand. They're all the same.
Yeah, there are only a few exceptions, but I'd say 99% are absolute crap and have been either shown to not work at all, or there's absolutely no evidence they do work. And the whole point of a vitamin is you need only minute amounts of it for your body to function. That's why we evolved that way. So giving extra amounts doesn't actually help, and in some cases makes it worse. So but it's just playing on people's fears.
Exactly. And also alleviating them of accountability. So in other words, I can take that. I don't need to go to the trouble of making that. It's like, no, go to the trouble of making that. Save your money on that. I do find the more I've learnt through a lot of what you've written about and other authors that I really enjoy their work, it's so simple as well. It's like although you come at it very much from a science perspective, what I like is it ends up just being simple. It's like, yeah, we've been doing this for years. Just need to do a bit more of it and you'll feel better.
Yeah, well, it's all in plain sight, isn't it? But marketing, we're driven by, what we see on the TV and the adverts and influencers and everyone who's paid to say this stuff, and now most people get their information not from posters or government. Most people get
it through our phone,
from the internet. And a lot of the stuff is, people are paid to say things to sell you rubbish, and that's distorting the whole area.
Well, I've got another thing that I've got to try and sell you now, which is the next spoon.
Okay.
So
you
put your blindfold on. I'm just going to move the Pavlova away. You can come back to that.
I'll take that away.
Yeah. There's actually a whole one next door. But here is your next spoon, Tim. And I'm personally rather happy with this, but let's see how you are. Here we go. Open wide. You got it all? There we go. Now, what are we getting there? This is cooked by my own fair hand, Tim. I'd just like to say before you go into a deep critique.
Okay, well, we've got peanuts.
Yep.
Let's see. It's like an Malaysian, Indonesian.
It's very good, yes. Carolyn
satay.
Coconut. Any coconut in there?
Yeah, a little bit of coconut.
You got mustard seed, good chili.
Coconut. And yeah, a bit of spiciness, bit of paprika maybe.
Yeah.
Peppers.
Anything in there that you might not like, Tim?
No, I think I like it all.
Excellent. Please take the blindfold off, Tim, because you've just eaten sweet potato, which you don't like.
Haha, there you go.
Now that is a very popular one at home. That is my Carolyn coconut sweet potato curry. And when I saw that on your list, I thought, I am going to get Tim Spector to eat and enjoy sweet potato. Because you said
I'm glad you did that.
You don't like the texture and you say it's too sweet.
Yes.
But you didn't get an overwhelming sweetness.
No.
You didn't get... Because I think a lot of the times when people are cooking curries, they're especially when you're looking at sort of Southeast Asian curries, there's a tendency to want to make them sweeter than they need to be. There's like, more
lots of coconut milk.
But too much coconut milk or reduced coconut milk, which then is always in condensed milk area, and then also palm sugar and all that. It doesn't necessarily need it.
No, I'm glad you've converted me now. So yeah, I definitely would.
I'll give you the recipe, Tim.
Eat that one. So
maybe it'll make it into the next book, Tim. I don't know.
Yeah, well.
What is your hope for this, Tim? Because I know what mine is, having read it. What's your hope for Ferment as a book?
Well, someone reads it.
Yep.
Oh,
first and foremost.
Other than my mum.
Mm-hmm.
And people think about ferments in a different way, and we can make 3 ferments a day, a bit like the 30 plants a week.
Yeah.
And that would be amazing. And particularly getting kids early on to like that sour taste rather than just the sweet taste they're exposed to. So a lot of people are, people I work with, nutritionists, they're getting young kids, and if you get them, they will do like kefir, they do like sauerkraut, they will get onto kimchi if you pick that right window.
But I think also
change the taste of the next generation
with the recipes in the book as well, getting people to actually make it themselves and understand how easy it is, how cost effective it is, how much less trips to the pharmacy you will be making as a result of it, less trips to the doctor, to the dentist, because that's the other thing which I've discovered now as well, is this is another microbiome all of its own, your gums and all that sort of thing. So that's the next thing we've got to look at is our dental regimes.
Absolutely, yeah, no, and particularly for looking after your brain health.
Yeah.
That's going to be really big in the future. But yeah, I'd love everyone not only to try and but get into it slowly. Don't worry about I hated kimchi when I first tasted it. But you do it slowly. You mix it with cream cheese. All kinds of tricks in the book about how you can introduce these things. Don't expect overnight you to love it. But so many people have coming up to me now and said, once you start talking about ferments, I hated it first, but I persisted, and then suddenly after a few months, I just love this.
Yeah, because what you realise is your kind of taste receptors start to kind of crave it. I always think a really good entry point is that classic French dish of choucroute paysanne, which is the sauerkraut with just all the sort of meats sticking out of it. But it makes you understand that balance of sour and salty, and and sort of gets your taste buds firing in a different way.
Totally different. So for many people, this will be a bit of a shock, but do give it a go, and don't be put off, because if you keep it up for a short while, you'll suddenly you become hooked on it, and it's being hooked on something that's really good. Yep.
Well, I'm hooked on 30 plants a week. Some days I get it in
if you have that dish.
Dish from Neil at Symplicity, definitely. But this is a great book. I really, and there's a couple of other recipes which are next on the list to be doing out of here. So thank you very much for taking part, Tim. It's lovely to see you.
Been a pleasure.
It's lovely to read this, and I look forward to more from Tim Spector, because what he says is correct. Thank you very much. Anyway, that's all for this week on Spooning with Mark Wogan. Join me next week when I'll have another very special guest trying the foods that they think they love and the foods that they think they hate. I would like to say thank you to the team here at Corrigan's and the use of the lovely Lindsay room. And if you like what we're doing here, you can find us across all social media just by searching Spooning with Mark Wogan. And if you're not sick of the sound of my voice, you can find me at weekends on Virgin Radio Chill 10 till 2. Every Saturday and Sunday, I know. If you're unhinged or lost for things to do, tune into that. But also, you can watch this episode in glorious Technicolor on the Virgin YouTube channel. Until next week, stay beautiful.